here we are tonight. We welcome you to this very, very exciting Dads for Kids family webinar. We've got people from the United States. We've got people from around the Tweed, Lismore area. We've got people from sunny Victoria. We've got people from the Pilbara. Yes. Say hello, Elise from the Pilbara. So Elise drives a huge truck that's about as big as 5 houses and weighs about 380 ton full. So, but she's a very committed mum, and she's really wants to support dads. It's great to have some wonderful women here too. My wife has joined us tonight, and we've got some children. Simon, who's this beautiful little princess next to you?
I'll come over here so you can see. This is Ariel. This is my granddaughter, Ariel.
Ariel, it's a great pleasure to meet you, and we want to honour you. And believe it or not, Ariel, we're here for wonderful young people like you, aren't we, Brian?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Now, Australia's Constitution says humbly relying on the blessings of Almighty God. So you'll forgive me if I do the same tonight and ask God to help tonight. Father, we thank you for your help. We thank you for Ariel. We thank you for the children of Australia, and we bless them tonight. We ask you to guide us and help us in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
So we welcome you, but I've got a couple of jokes, I'm sure. I know Paul told a few just before we started, and it didn't seem to get a great reception, but you want to go again, Paul?
Well, I don't know if this one's a joke or not, but it's a story about my dad, and he's actually worked as on roadworks most of his life, and I just had this feeling he was a kleptomaniac, and I think I was proven right because all the signs were there when I got home. So
shut up.
That is classic, Paul.
That's a good one.
Is there one more in the repository there?
For anyone with daughters, I've got 2 daughters, and I always say to them, if you're looking for a guy to date, you definitely couldn't go past an apiarist. And if you know what an apiarist is, the reason is because he's a keeper.
Yes.
On that happy note, we might show you our latest Mother's Day ad to keep that humour going, because children can say the darndest things, as the man once said. Here we go.
About 1,000%. She's lovely. My mum's the best cook. She's funny. She loves about me when I cuddle her. And I sometimes help her with washing. I love you, Mummy. She's the best making cupcakes. I love her because she gives me cuddles. And my mum just kisses to me. Yeah, I love my mum so much.
I love you, Mummy.
And my mummy loves me this much.
Love you.
Read stories, brings me to the park. I love you, Mum. I love you, Mummy. I love you, Mummy.
So there we go. Mother's Day, and would you believe it, we're getting attacked. We get attacked because we're running ads for Mother's Day. No matter what we do, we mostly get attacked. Father's Day ads and encouraging dads, it seems to be that's a real danger. That's a real dangerous sport if you're going to do that sort of thing. But certainly Mother's Day ads, I mean, goodness me, you wouldn't believe it, would you, Paul? Got any comments about that?
Well, I think there's some voices out there that don't really like what we do, but I think somewhat too. There's a bit of pain around family in Australian lives, so sometimes it touches off things like that, and people reach out. But it's an important message. We've got to keep sending it.
We just have to keep on keeping on, don't we, Paul?
That's right.
We just have to keep on keeping on. And so this is really, we are about dads. Some people say we're sold out because we support mothers, but my goodness me, mothers need support just as much as dads. But the greatest way we can actually support mothers is to really lift up dads and encourage them. And of course, many of you would have seen this ad. Here we go.
Now this the kind of song that you don't hear every day. So many things I used to want have faded away. I used to only think about myself in a way, but you be revealing a deeper purpose in me. And people say I've changed, I tell them gladly, putting my attention on my family. I might never drizzy drive that caddy, but I'ma be the best daddy I can be. People say I've changed, I tell them gladly, putting my attention on my family. I might never drizzy drive that caddy, but I'ma be the best daddy I can be. You are the best daddy, best daddy. My kids tell me you are the best daddy, best daddy.
So there we go, and that's gives you a good pictorial of what we are dreaming about. It's about the family. It's about encouraging mothers and fathers, but particularly dads, to be great dads and inspire them and resource them. And we're going to get some great tips from some great men. I want to introduce to you on behalf of the Dads for Kids board, Trevor Suter. Trevor's a builder and runs, his sons are now running the company. His children are running the company now, Pycon Constructions, which is a multi-award winning company based in Port Macquarie. It's the largest builder in Port Macquarie. He's got a real heart for families. Trevor, tell us, what gets you out of bed first thing in the morning?
Harder these mornings, it's much colder. But, still pretty active, still active in the business, but not totally, semi-retired. But yeah, we live in a good part of the world, so it's pretty easy to get up in the morning.
And, you know, tell us about your family and, you know, the grandchildren.
Yeah, look, I'm married to Lynn, my beautiful wife, 49 years, 50 years now next January. So that's a bit of a milestone. We've got 3 children and 10 grandchildren. And yeah, it's a blessing to be able to live and change some of the things in your grandchildren that you probably didn't have the opportunity in the children. A bit more wisdom, a bit more age on our side. But yeah. You're not trying to tell us that you're less than perfect father, are you, Trevor? Near less, yeah. And we learn. Well, I'm a great grandfather, tremendous grandfather. So learn a lot. Yeah, I'm trying to sort of get the things right I didn't do with my kids on my grandchildren. So that's a sort of a good, it gives you another chance, doesn't it? There's a few grandfathers. Give us a wave if you're a grandfather tonight. There's a few here, so that's great. Give special wisdom to grandfathers. Yeah, you do. Help us, Jesus. So what are your top 3 tips? What are the top 3 tips you can give? There's dads listening tonight for dads here. Well, it's funny because probably more the fact that you're more involved in your grandchildren because I've got more time, and I look at what I can do to sow into their life. And I think, you know, the most important thing I see in my own children is to love your partner, love your wife, respect your wife. That's a great model to your children. And I think it's very important that you teach your children how to make good choices, allow them to fail, but pick them up with unconditional love. I think that's the best thing you can do for your children. So are you trying to tell us all that we've got to allow our children to fail? Absolutely. Absolutely. It's one of the biggest problems of today is that kids aren't allowed to fail. You know, too many rules. You should be able to fail. They're not going to learn conflict resolution. They're not going to learn strength or character without failing. There'll be a few people with a bit of wisdom tonight. So what's the vision and the goal of Dads for Kids, Trevor? Well, the vision is, I have to read, I should remember this, shouldn't I? I should know it off by heart, but I do mostly. To transform the nation by inspiring fathers and to help their children to be the best they can be. I think Dads for Kids is an interesting mission. It's been formed for nearly 19 years, as you know, Warwick. We've been around that long, you and I, and I think we're at the forefront of men's ministry. I think it's fair to say that men today, the family has been destabilised and fractured, particularly the identity of men, and it's gained momentum over the last few years. I think Dads for Kids are at the forefront of that, and forefront of educating and supporting men and families. I think we've got a great track record and a tremendous amount of resources. A lot of people wouldn't realise what we do. I think we punch above our weight in every way for the amount of resources we have. But you know, we have an excellent website, very resourceful, and it's a great website for people to go to and find resource and information. We run 2 great training courses, Good to Great. We believe most fathers are good, but we believe they can be great. and that course exemplifies that. Courageous course is an online course which we run, and that works very well. We've got the Men's Summit, we run once a year, and that's gaining momentum all the time, and great tool to teach men issues and things that they don't normally learn in the normal course of life. We run the Mother's Day and the Father's Day ads, which is great and showed them. And that's a great media presence with tremendous value out of them on the community ads channel. We do a newsletter which has roughly 200,000 emails go out every year on the newsletter. We're very informative and keep people in touch, and they can come back through that and get extra information. Social media, we run a social media process. International Men's Day, we coordinate the digital coordination of the International Men's Day, growing all the time. And I just believe that that's only a sample of what we do. We've got a strategic plan document which says all we do. If most people saw that, they'd be surprised at what we achieve. And we believe that's making a difference in the lives of men. So we say, check it out, check out what we do, check out the website. Someone has to advocate for men. We believe we do, and we believe we make a difference. We'd love the support of everybody, particularly financially. We need that to continue.
Well, thank you, Trevor. We've got a very special guest from the USA now, Trevor, and I think you know him well.
Excellent.
TV for Dad, Season 5. We're going on an Australian adventure. It is your attitude, your behaviors, your communication, and your decisions that will shape the next generation. I want to talk to you about courage. Courage. Those words just built something in that young man that nobody could ever steal. I'm excited to have you join me on our Australian adventure. TV for Dad, Season 5.
What do you think about that, Brian? Does it put a smile on your face? You were down here 2 years ago with us at this Men's Leadership Summit. There's the results, eh?
Absolutely. It's a smile on my face, and then I saw that giant swing thing that you guys made me get on twice, and I need to go back into counseling again.
Well, I think we all know, Trevor and Paul and some of the other team members, why you get out of bed in the morning. It's because you want to wrestle a crocodile. Is that true?
Anything but that giant swing, brother. Yeah, I'll take on a croc or a grizzly bear, but yeah. No, brother, I get out of bed in the morning because there's purpose for each of us. And I have found some of those avenues of purpose. So whether it's still doing some work in the corporate world, or writing a new book, or loving on my grandkids, or kissing my beautiful wife, there's things to be done. And this world is full of excitement, adventure, love, challenges. And man, I can't wait to get up every day and just see which one we get to take on.
Wow. You're inspirational, man. And you look so young. I reckon you should have been a film star, don't you reckon?
He was.
I love filming things like TV for Dads, because if I screw it up, we get to do another take, right? So, and the 1-inch thick makeup here, and then that paint stuff you spray in your hair, yeah, it works every time, buddy. Yeah, you clean this off, and I look like a 93-year-old gentleman.
Come on. You're also a very good bull artist and telling tales. That's why you go well in Australia. Brian, you know, just a bit of, for those people here, you know, we will get an opportunity to invest in Dads for Kids, but, you know, many people here on this call have given to Dads for Kids, and we actually helped you financially produce that TV program. Now, I'm pretty sure it gets into over 50 countries, and that was the 1-minute trailer for, is it 10 or 12? How many episodes?
12 episodes, full half-hour episodes. The The quality is outstanding on that stuff. We're a little bit like you guys work in that we get a whole lot more done with a little bit of money than most people do. And we don't whine, we don't complain. We take what we've got and we continue with the vision. But yeah, man, you guys were instrumental. In fact, this is interesting. You caught me at a wonderfully weak moment several years ago. You gave me a year in advance to invite me to come over and speak there and so on. And almost on a whim, I'm like, yeah, okay, because things had not gone well with productions prior to that. Our previous production was a bit of a train wreck, as we say here. And I said, yeah, almost without thinking. And the closer we got to it, you said, well, we're gonna film this thing, Brian. We'll give you the film, and you could use that in a TV show. And so that inspired me. And I thought, well, why not just continue and see if we couldn't make an entire series out of it? And I reluctantly came, and it turned out to be the absolute best series we've ever done, and we've done quite a few. And without TV for Dads, without you and the guys around you, the people around you, your lovely bride, your kids, the support we got, it wouldn't have happened. And now people are blessed in different parts of the world to get a chance to see some about your beautiful nation, but also to learn about manhood, fatherhood, and the things that we teach about.
Yeah, it's awesome. Tell us about your family, Brian.
Yeah, they're the best part of me, that's for sure. I've been married to Kathleen for 36 years now, which says a tremendous amount about her stress tolerance. I never share with her the itinerary of our shoots until after we get back, and she checks my body. She checks all body parts and goes, okay, nothing has bitten anything off and you're alive, so okay. But she's a gem. She's been just a rock in my world for years and years. And then Christopher, Stephen, Jennifer, and Daniel are my kids. And then we've got Bella, Joy, Ezekiel, Mayan, and Hank as grandbabies. So it's a very, very full house when everybody gathers together. And it is my world. It is absolutely the center of what I do and why I do it.
So cool. And tell us your top 3 tips for being a dad. And it doesn't matter if you say something that someone else has said, because we're all going to do that tonight. So off you go.
Yeah, I'm gonna shift it a little bit. There's things that to me are like no-brainers, and one would be love your kids, but that takes on a variety of forms. So I'm gonna say have a plan. We make tremendous plans. If we're gonna go on holiday, see, I'm speaking Australian, holiday, not vacation, holiday. If we're going on holiday, we make a big plan, right? If we're going fishing, we make a big plan. Little Tommy or Timmy comes into the world and we're like, oh, that's cool. You know, what's on TV? Well, you got to have a plan. You know, what are the things you want to look for in your children? What do you want to build in them? Do you want them to be industrious? Do you want them to be kind to others? Do you want them to be brave? So you've got to have a plan. And often we just don't. We just somehow we lose the thought there and think, well, they'll be fine when they're 8 and 10 and 15 and 18. And the next thing you know, that 18 years that you had to lay a foundation upon which they'll build for half a century is gone. So you've got to have a plan. Number one, that's very, very important. Ready for number 2?
Absolutely.
Mentoring. Okay. They don't know what they don't know. All right. And you can remember back in the day when the little one is headed toward a light socket with a fork and is about to short out the entire house and make their hair stand up on end, and you have to scream at them, no, don't. They don't know what they don't know. Well, the ignorance doesn't go away when they get older. There's simply things that they've not been exposed to. And so I agree with my brother, let them fail, let them make mistakes. But make sure that we're aware of what's ahead so that we can temper that, because we all know there's some mistakes in this life that are fatal, there's some mistakes in this life that teenagers can make that will ride with them for the rest of their lives. So mentor them, teach them, train them in the things that you need, that they need to be successful. The third thing I would say is bless them. And this is something I write about a lot. And that is that God has given you hands, and he's given you words, and he's given you prayer to bless your children. And the touch of a man that loves, that touches a child for no reason for themselves, but only for the child, it literally changes that child. It creates a protective shell, if you will, around that child. That's the power God's given a man in his hands. And so bless those children, speak kindly to them. Don't ever let them hear you say, you'll never amount to anything, I don't love you. No. We bless, we don't curse. And then we touch and give them strength. And those things that don't work from our words and our touch, God will fill in those gaps when we pray.
That's absolutely fantastic. That covers it all, doesn't it?
There's many facets to it, and I can't wait to hear what the others, guys, the ladies will share. It's a team sport, man. We need each other. We've got to help each other, because sometimes, my kids, they know they know I don't know what I'm talking about, back in their early teen years, but you might speak into their lives and all of a sudden the same thing I've been saying, Warwick is just a genius, and I wouldn't tell them different, So let's help each other. Let's work together. Let's keep an eye on each other's children. And we'll get there. We'll get there. I like what I'm seeing.
It's June 30th for us here in Australia. It's sort of, and because Dads4Kids is tax deductible charity, it's a prime time to give. People can reduce their taxes. Give us in just 2 sentences. Why should people support Dads4Kids financially?
Because the family is the center of any society and civilization. And the rest of the world has gone mad, and somebody's got to step up and say, family and fathers are crucial. And your organization has been faithful for years and years and years. And you are great stewards. Brother, I would swim to get there to endorse you. I feel that strongly about the Dads4Kids in your organization. It is good soil. Let's take a few months off of lattes or whatever, and take that money, get it over to TV for Dads, and watch what happens.
Yeah, so we're producing TV just like Brian is too. So thanks so much, Brian. We've got in a couple of weeks' time. Well, actually, it's 5-6 weeks' time, middle of July. We've got a very special camp on, and this man couldn't join us tonight, but he will be speaking at the Men's Leadership Summit on the 16th to the 18th of July. And I'd like to just show you a couple of minute clip with Darren.
Darren Lewis, the founder of Fathering Adventures, who has been a pioneer in teaching rites of passage for both men and women in Australia.
I have a question for you. One question phrased in a number of ways. What is a man? What is manhood? What does it mean to be a man? What does a real man do? How does a real man act? How does a real man treat others? His wife, his kids, his mates, his employer, his employees? If you don't have a clear and compelling, succinct answer to that question, relax, friends, you're not alone. Very few men have a good answer to that question. My dear friend and mentor, Robert Lewis, always says this: you cannot become what you cannot define. At this year's Dads4Kids Men's Leadership Summit, I look forward to helping you discover the answer to that very question, so that you may have a vision that's clear and compelling, that takes you the distance throughout your life as a man. I also look forward to catching up with some old mates and making a bunch of new mates too. We'll see you there.
Cindy McGavey,
And so it just so happens we're going to hear from Cindy McGavey next. Cindy, great to have you joining us tonight. It's just a great honor. Cindy spent 8 years, everybody, 8 years in the Australian Army. And this was many years ago when it would have been 100 times harder to be a woman in the Army. And she's been in Africa for almost a decade in mission work. And that in itself is almost like being in the Army for another 10 years. Cindy, it's great to have you with us. What actually gets you out of bed in the morning?
Wow, Warwick, there's some really good questions there, and I've been listening to the answers, and very, very good. Well, I actually asked my husband. I worked out what gets me out of bed in the morning, and I asked my husband yesterday, and he gave me a different answer. So my answer was the same as Brian, and it was purpose. You know, there's so much to do. There's so much to go out and conquer. There's so much to influence and change the world, and even in our own tiny little world. And so that's what I said. And my husband said that I talk a lot about transforming lives, and I've seen lives totally transformed, including my own life when I was 19, when I found God, and my life was totally transformed from a path of destruction to a path of life. So yeah, that's really what gets me up in the morning.
That's awesome. And tell us about your family and, just so people can understand a bit more about you.
Yeah, well, I've been married for 34 years to my husband, who we met in the Army. We have 5 children. We had 3 boys first and then 2 girls last. So their ages ranged from 30 to 20. 3 of them are married. So I was brought up in rural New South Wales. Actually, someone just said they're from, is it Trevor? Just said he was from Port Macquarie.
Yeah.
So my family from Kempsey.
Yeah, Kempsey.
Yeah, and well, outside Kempsey, not in the town. They're on the farm, and that is where I'm now. I'm just visiting my parents for a few days over the weekend, so that's where I am now. So I was born up on the land and with horses and cattle and all that sort of thing. And what else have I said? Yeah, I was in the Army for 8 years or 7 years. My husband was 8, and we were on the mission field in East Africa for 12 years. We trained as Bible translators, so we went over there with Wycliffe Bible translators. So, and I've been in my current role of Director for Youth for Christ for I'm going into my 6th year.
No, that's very cool too. Now, Cindy, you're going to be telling us at the summit. So Cindy's also speaking at the summit. She's written a brilliant book. Trevor's, are you finished it, Trevor?
Not quite, close.
It's fantastic. And Elise Anderson up there in Parapadu, Pilbara region, has read it too. And anyone else has read it here on the call? Fantastic book. I'd highly recommend. Paul's read it. Yeah, highly recommend it. Now, women, I'm going to ask you, what are the top 3 tips for being a good father? And there's a reason I'm asking you, Cindy, because they did a study many years ago, and you're going to be interested to find this out, Cindy, that men get most of their fathering advice from their wife. When they said, who is your biggest advisor as far as fathering goes? And they put their wife was number 1, like about 55%, and then it went down the line. So I'm sure you got some wisdom, because you can see, oftentimes women can see all the mistakes we make. That's certainly the case with my wife. What would you say, the 3 top tips?
Yeah, the first thing that comes to my mind, the very first thing that comes to my mind, and I don't know if it's the most important or whatever, was to be a principled man. And I think, for me, it's godly principles, but to be really strong on what you stand for, and stand for those in good times and bad times. And so women really respect principled men, and so do children. Even if you might be wrong and later you change your mind, if you are principled, I think that commands a natural respect. So for me personally, I love that about, and I love it when I see men who are principled. It just, respect comes so much easier. And then with respect, people, there is a listening, there's an openness to listen. So that was my first one. Someone else said this, to love your wife. I once heard years ago, someone said the biggest gift you can give to your children is to love your wife. And I think I've seen so many young men who don't know how to treat women, or just to relate to women, because they haven't seen their fathers do it, if they're from a fatherless home and so on. The third one was, Brian touched on it, it was mentoring or modeling manhood, which is a little bit to do with the previous one I said about loving your wife and all that sort of thing. Mentoring is so needed. And recently my son, he's just come back from Germany. He said there's this, now he listens to a lot of the talk that's going on, which is on the new public square, which young people are congregating, and they're talking about the cargo cult of manhood. And I don't know if you know, cargo cult is basically came from New Guinea, where and different tribes, where they saw that missionaries or other people would come in, and if they did, and that they were always rich, but they didn't know where their money came from. And so they started just planting a garden exactly like the homes of these people. They would do everything so that the wealth would come to them. And it was called cargo cult. It's very common, you can look it up. But there's this new thing that's called the cargo cult of manhood. And young men are going to the gym. They are going back to natural, digging holes, wearing the flannelette shirts, going back to all the organic foods. There's all sorts of things that young men are doing in a cargo cult of manhood, because they don't know what it means to be a man. So I really love what Darren just said in that video too.
That's fantastic. And just in 2 sentences, you run a charity yourself, which is helping a lot of vulnerable young men and young women right across this nation. Why should people support a charity like Dads4Kids and make an investment?
Yeah, because I believe that there's a real attack on boys and manhood in our culture. And you take the men out of the society and the women and children are vulnerable. And so we really need to support organizations like Dads4Kids to bring back the men and to restore manhood. And that's
absolutely awesome, Cindy. And thank you for sharing your wisdom. And for those who want to come to the summit, book it now. The early bird closes tomorrow at midnight. And, we'll give it back to you if the COVID stops you coming, because we've got to do that. That's how it works. But certainly book now because you'll save money. Cindy, thank you. Alan Meyer, Dr. Alan Meyer, all the way from sunny Victoria, where it's minus 500 degrees. Alan, what gets you out of bed in the morning?
Well, I'll tell you what gets me out of bed in the morning is 2 things. The first thing is my wife gets breakfast in bed every single day. So she's my first priority when I get up. And there's a second thing that gets me out of bed at the moment in particular, and that is I'm leading another Valiant Man group personally. And a couple of years ago, I had a really helpful experience of being mentored in weight loss. And I was struggling to get on top of my just my overweight and get my physical health going. And a really good guy met me at a men's thing. We were both speaking together, and he was an ex-AFL footballer and a coach he was a personal trainer and an author. He took me on, and I lost weight, about 20 kilograms, and got back into really good shape. And I learned some new skills. And the key to it was he sent me a little video every single morning. First thing in the morning on my phone, there was this, and then we did the plan together. But I said to Helen, these guys are doing discipleship better than we are. And because Life Keys, that's what we're about. We're about life transformations. They're doing better stuff than we are. And this time around, I have a new group of men that I'm taking through a Valiant Man course. And I get so moved by the need. I get so moved by the devastation, the struggle. I watch men struggle, and you know how hard it is. And I made a decision that I would create for them an encouraging 4 or 5 minute video and send it to them every single morning for 63 days. And there's a reason for 63 days, and that is that the course runs for 70 days. It's a course runs for 70, and they do a daily journal for the last 63 days. And Carolyn Leaf says 63 days is what it takes to build a real neuronal pathway. With that, you've built skills into your life. And I promised them, I said, I'm going to be in your face for the next 63 days. And I've been doing it. So I get up first thing in the morning to send them out a video, and it goes either by email or direct to their phone. And it's been just a brilliant step forward. I've been watching the impact. When I was coached every single day, I just made progress in ways that I hadn't been able to. I decided I'm going to pass it on. So that's what gets me out of bed at the moment, mate.
Well, that's very, very cool, very, very inspiring, actually, and innovative. And tell us about you've talked about Helen.
Yep.
And how she gets breakfast in bed. I hope my wife is, she's there, she's listened, it's too late. No, Alan, tell us about your family and your children and your grandchildren.
Well, Helen and I have been married this year for 53 years. We met each other in high school. We have 4 children, we have 12 grandchildren. And increasingly, my kids are out there doing their stuff. Increasingly, my focus is on grandkids. And tomorrow, I'm going to meet with one of my grandkids turned 18 today. I'll meet him tomorrow. I've got a watch for him, and I'm going to help him start an investment portfolio tomorrow. I'm going to meet him for lunch. I'm going to talk to him about exactly what Brian was talking about before. You know, I think I'm probably better at coaching my grandchildren than I was at coaching my kids. You know, that's just how it is. You learn more. You get older, you get the more you've got up your sleeve. So the reality is, tomorrow I'm going to help my 18-year-old grandson to start thinking about being a man. And I tell you, I know what it is to be a man. I know what it is, partly because I watched my dad. My dad loved my mum. Then I had a second dad, my spiritual father, Hal Oxley. He only died last year at 103. And he was, for me, a mentor, a man's man, the youngest colonel in the Australian Imperial Forces, a rat of Tobruk, on MacArthur's planning staff for the retaking of the Pacific. And he was my dad. And I know that what men need, they need to see a man live like an ox. They need to see a man serve. They need to see a man act like a lion. They need to see him stand up and confront the challenges with courage. They need to see a man who's an eagle. They need to see a man who knows how to pray and worship and believe God. And then they need to see a man who knows how to control his sex life and every other passion in his life. And if you can master those 4 things, then any guy that you ever meet will have something to learn from you. That's more than you needed, but I go it to you anyway. That's all for free.
So now you don't have to come to the summit on the 16th to the 18th of July, but seriously, you better, because Alan's speaking there as well. Actually, that what you just said reminds me of the Rudyard Kipling poem, "Then you'll be a man, my son. Then you'll be a man, my son." You know, if you can do those things, and my goodness me, it takes a lifetime to learn that, doesn't it, Alan?
Yeah, it's a fact.
In 3 sentences, 3 top tips in 3 sentences, Alan, to be a dad.
I'll start always by saying, probably the finest thing my dad ever did for me was that he loved my mum. And I never heard my father say a cross word to my mother till I was 14 years of age. And then it was pretty mild. My father treated my mother like she was the princess of the house. And it marked my heart, and it will never leave me. When I meet my dad in eternity, the first thing I'll do is I will wrap my arms around him and I'll kiss him on the face and I'll tell him, "Dad, I never realized what a champion you were until I got a bit older. But mate, I'm grateful for you. Second thing is kiss kids on the face. Never hit them in the face, ever. Kiss them on the face. I learned that when I never didn't like my dad that much when I was a teenager because he was straight. He was a straight talker. He was a moral man, and I was just a goose. And as a result, I wasn't that close to my father. But the older I got, the more I realized what a treasure I had been given. And I'll never forget, in particular, I was counseling a woman one day, and it seemed like she had nothing good to say about her father. And I said, tell me, did anything good ever happen in your house? I said, what do you say we do a treasure hunt? Let's write down all the good stuff. And the more we wrote, the more she remembered. And by the time I'd finished, it had transformed her entire view of her family life. And as soon as she left, I was sitting there realizing I've never did that with my own dad. And that day I sat down and I wrote my father a letter, and I began to list all of the precious things that were in my life because of him. And by the end of that letter, I was in love with my father, and I sent him that letter, although he never mentioned the letter to me once, because I just saw something different. From that day, every time I met my dad, I'd put my arms around him and kiss him on the face. And he never knew what to do with that because that just wasn't part of his background. But it did me a world of good. And as a result, whenever I meet my kids, I kiss them on the face. I put my arms around him and I kiss him on the neck. I kiss him on the face. And the third thing, I'll back up what Cindy said. Walk in a straight line. Let your kids see that a man can do long-term obedience in the same direction. Steadiness. Again, my dad was just, he walked in a straight line. And there wasn't a thing that I was ever ashamed of my father for doing. And I do believe that if you can demonstrate integrity, if you can actually develop some integrity and live it out, that in itself, for kids to see that people can live for Christ and they can live honestly and they tell the truth and they just relentlessly stick with those boring, ordinary qualities that make life wonderful. So I think those things are great. And then be generous and give them a lot of money too. That's always helpful.
Actually, that's interesting what you said about the letter. I did a man-to-man course back in 2004, yeah. And they suggested writing a letter to your father. So I wrote a letter to my father. It was basically about a thank you letter, about 2.5 pages. I gave it to him, but he wanted me to read it to him.
Yeah.
So that made it a bit more difficult. Anyway, he was very grateful to get it, but he died. He died a week afterwards.
That's it. That's no man. Just in time.
That's powerful, Simon, and I think your granddaughter's agreeing with you. Alan, in 2 sentences, why should people support Dads for Kids and the mission to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the hearts of the children to the fathers?
Well, because you're doing something. A lot of money gets given to people who do nothing. And a lot of money gets given to people who shouldn't have done anything. Man, the amount of money that gets wasted on nonsense is extraordinary. The amount of money, the government money and private money that gets given to nonsense. But if you help a man, you help everybody. Fact is, if you change a man's life, I use this quote over and over again every time I talk to men. John Gottman says it's what a man does in a relationship that is the critical factor between success and failure. It's not that what women do is not important. It's just that what a man does either makes it possible for a woman to do the stuff that she's capable of doing, or he sabotages the stuff. It's what a man does. If you don't help men, everybody struggles. Churches struggle. Marriages struggle. Kids struggle. Men hate themselves. The reason I support what you do. It's because you're doing something, man. And I'll support somebody who'll do something that's worth doing. And if you help men, you help everybody. So that's number one, and number two and number three reason, I think, right there. Just do something that makes a flipping difference. That's it. Yeah.
It's very gracious and very kind of you to say that. And now I forgot to mention earlier, if you guys got any questions, put them in the chat, because we're going to have a Q&A in a couple of minutes time. We're going to have a Q&A, and you can just, if you want, you can actually just say a question too. You can put your hand up with the Zoom. You might find it there on your bottom of your screen. You can just click a little button and your hand goes up, and that way we can see it. It might be at the top of your screen. But nonetheless, we'd love to some interaction as we finish the night. We are here to encourage you, inspire you. And Paul, we're also here to encourage people to help us keep going. Is that right, Paul?
Yeah, that's right.
Paul,
that's exactly right. And we're very blessed to have so many people around the country that keep this engine going. And there's so many great stories that have been coming out of just the lives that get transformed when guys commit to taking a journey with other men. And the awesome thing is actually, it's not normally his story that's the best story. It's normally his partner's story or his children's story. And just the encouragement that comes out of that, to hear, you know, the kids talk about the different things that dad's doing, you know, the times that he's spending with them, and the focus that he's putting on the home. And interestingly, some of those stories, actually, when a guy gets his home going well, his work or his business goes better with less effort. So we truly appreciate all those people that see what we're doing, and yeah, that's what we're here for.
Just tell us one of those stories, bro. What do you reckon? What do you reckon is one of the most outstanding ones you've heard recently? You reckon?
Oh, one of our guys over in WA, who was, you know, like a lot of guys our age, sort of in his 40s and belting away at a business, and, you know, in his mind at the time, he's killing it. But really what he was killing was his family unit. And his wife was at a bit of a loss about how the relationship was going, and his kids sort of felt like they weren't, you know, treasured by him. And in actual fact, his business was not doing well at all. And so he came onto one of our courses, and it just hit him. It just hit him from left field. And the fascinating thing was that he humbled himself, and he realized, he went back to his wife and confessed that he needed to make some changes. And he went through the process of walking that out, you know, not just doing a program, but actually changing his life. And you know, his 13-year-old twins, or 12-year-old twins started high school, and he got to take them for the first day, and he took them out for breakfast, and they just said to him, "Dad, we're so glad you're in this with us." And you know, his employees are so much happier because he's happier. He's giving them more recognition and more responsibility, and the business is just going through the roof. And all his friends, all his business mates around him think he's hired Anthony Robbins, but we all know that's not true. So yeah, I rang him a couple of weeks ago, and I said, "Mate, how's it going?" He said, "I feel like I'm a teenager again and having so much fun." So it can make a big difference. Yeah, so that's the good news. And so if you'd like to help us, we have got a website. We actually, thankfully, it's been a long time coming, but we've you know, had this remodel, which is great. Desperately needed it, and helping our children make a great start in life. And there's a donate button up there. You click that, and if anyone wants to do that, we'll report it in tonight, let people know. But we certainly love your help and love to get your assistance as we go forward. And so if you've got any questions, put them in the chat now. I'm going to ask my wife. Now, you think that I'm some sort of superhero. The truth of the matter is, my wife is a superhero for Dads for Kids. Without her, you would not have got these newsletters. You would not be knowing what that this thing is on tonight. And we have been working pretty hard for 19 years doing this, and we really want to pass this on to the next generation. That's why we have to raise finance for it, because you know, only crazy people like Alison and I work for nothing, but we've got to pay people, and people got mortgages, people got to pay rent, and we've got to move to another level.
Alison, what are the secrets? What advice would you give to men tonight?
Advice for men. Give your wives breakfast in bed like Warwick's going to do tomorrow, I'm told. It's cracking
You've really set me up, Alan. You've really set me up. Come on,
it's good. It'll do you good, pal.
Yes, well, I should get my order ready. It'll take him a while to work out how to make it. Warwick and I started Dads4Kids 19 years ago, and we really are passionate to help men. Our men in our civilization are really being put down. Our boys are suffering in schools and universities. They're not doing terribly well. Our male suicides are going through the roof. And it's a real passion of ours. I had an email from someone saying, where are all the men standing up for things? And I thought, well, men are being put down all over the place. So we have 4 sons and 1 daughter. And I felt some of the speakers speaking tonight have touched on a few really important things. Like Warwick saying that a lot of men get their fathering advice from their wives. I thought that was very interesting. And yet Alan talked about the importance of his dad. And I think that if men aren't getting that support, or if they haven't had a good role model in their lives, Dads4Kids can fill some of that and encourage dads in their walk and in their role as dads. We use a book that's called Fathering from the Fast Lane, and it was written by Dr. Bruce Robinson, and it has a lot of stories in it. It's mainly just people talking about their dads, and the pain comes through, those who didn't have good dads and those who did have good dads. And it's really inspiring to read. You get an understanding of how impacting, it's men and women speaking in this book, and the impact that a father, a good father or a bad father, can have on a child's life. And every man who is a dad has someone that he can influence. And whether he actually even sees his children or not, he can still influence them. I believe he can still influence them. And we are really passionate about putting a fence around the top of the cliff before families break up. That's our heart, to see people stay together, to see families stay together. We've got a lot of men who are in our sphere of influence who have lost their children and who aren't seeing them. And that is really absolutely heartbreaking. We don't have the resources to help them, but we do have the resources to help and encourage dads and try and put that fence around the top of the cliff. It's actually far more economical than getting the ambulance out to pick up the broken pieces and try to help families later. If we can encourage dads to be the best they can be while they've got their children in their influence, if they can love their wives as they should love their wives, then it's going to help marriages and help families stay together. And that's really what we're into. Aren't we, Warwick?
Yes. Alison, I'm getting questions in the chat about, like, the number one question is, are you going to get breakfast in bed tomorrow?
I know, I already told you that. Am I?
You are.
We are looking after our 3 grandchildren tonight, so I don't. We'll see how overnight goes. We get any sleep, we'll both be needing breakfast in bed.
Alison, if you have a problem with that, you just give me a text and I'll be up there by about midday to make sure it happens the way it ought to happen.
Okay.
Not a problem. And by the way, Joel Colley's got his hand up for a question.
He has. Joel, off you go.
I have a question about sex, Warwick.
Don't ask me. I've only got 5 children. Come on.
So I got this Point Man book. Well, you can barely see it. But anyway, Point Man has a whole chapter about telling your kids about sex before they hear about it, from other mentors in their life. And I've read, Brian's book. I'm reading that at the moment, which is good. So anyway, I've been pretty excited about that opportunity, but I think I might have done it too early because my 4.5-year-old asked me about where he came from, and I thought, oh, this is my opportunity. So I gave him quite a detailed answer, and he certainly hasn't asked me again, and his eyes were like deer in the headlights afterwards. And my wife said, I think you probably told him too early. I think I did as well, but I don't know when I haven't seen anything in this book that says when you should do it. Everyone keeps saying it depends, it depends, it depends. But I'm just wondering if someone can give guidance. When should you do it? Have I done it too early?
No, I don't think it's ever too early, Joel. I don't think it's ever too early. As long as you do it in an age-appropriate way, it's never too early.
Okay.
I'm going to get Alan and Cindy to because I'd like to get another question for Brian, because I don't want to be talking about sex all night, because we could get, we could talk about this all night. But
I won't ask my follow-up question then, worry. No, I don't have it. Yeah,
Cindy and Alan, ladies before gentlemen. Cindy.
Well, are you asking me, Warwick, my opinion about Joel's question?
Exactly, yeah.
Well, I was just sitting here thinking, okay, when did I ask? I totally agree with whatever you've read in that book, Joel, that about educating your kids young in that area and being able to tell them. And that's what I did with mine. And it was in primary school, and I didn't want them to hear it from other people. And I also told them that that other children are not experienced in that area, but we are the most experienced in that area. Yeah. And that you get your information from people who are more experienced, and the people who you talk to are your parents, because we're safe and we'll tell you the truth. And what you hear from other kids is most probably wrong.
Yeah, that's good.
Alan, thank you, Cindy.
But I'm not really the right person to ask, although this is Helen. Helen was the one who gave our children their initial conversations on this. Then the kids have heard me speak on it endlessly, because as a high school teacher, to me it was one of the greatest needs they had, and very early I developed a clear theology on the whole thing. So my kids basically grew up hearing me explain this to teens and other people. And so I'm not quite, Helen would be the right person to ask. She's the early childhood specialist. I tend to get them once they hit about 8 or 9 or 10, but I've given some very detailed and extended discussions with 8-year-olds. Because the fact is, by the time kids get to the age of 8 in this culture, there's not much they haven't heard.
Yeah.
They haven't missed it by far, Joel. I mean, I love that ad on TV where the kid asks his dad when they're driving in the car, and by the time he gets there, he looks like he's a little bit overwhelmed. That might be you, but that's okay. I don't think it probably didn't do any damage.
I think the reality is that, these phones, you've got to understand that, I think, and Cindy writes about this in her book, and you can just Google Lost Boys, you'll get it. And she writes about it, kids are looking at pornography 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and these phones are getting shared around. Kids have got the phones now, and there's all sorts of rubbish on this, and their friends are sharing it. So you actually have to start almost, when they start speaking, I believe. And it's a shame, but that's the reality, and they need to hear it from you first. So I think you've done the right thing, Joel. What do you reckon, Brian? Brian Molotov? Have to unmute.
Buddy. Okay. Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a balance there. I've had a situation with one guy who had a son, and I think he went into too much detail too early. So rather than staying at 50,000 feet, man, he went right down into the full, and it unlocked something in that young guy, and he really struggled after that. He got into some real trouble with a sister and so on. So you have to really discern. I don't think it's one answer. I don't think we leave everything alone until they're 28, like you were, before you learned anything about that subject. And I don't think it's at age 2. Okay, so I think 8 is about the time that you've got to be very, very much aware of what are the influences, what's happening on phones. So yeah, I think you stay as high as you can, and then slowly bring it on down as their questions come out. And the key is having a positive relationship with those children so that there is an open dialogue. You can't have zero communication, lousy relationship, and then one day just wake up and go, today's the day for the talk. It won't work that way. And if you have a nuclear family where you've got a husband and a wife, and if you're in agreement around what will our view be, what are the things that we do want to communicate, what do we not want to communicate, it's beautiful, because then that wonderful child of yours is surrounded 24/7 by one or the other of the most important people in his or her life. And then there can be a consistent message. Obviously, there's no shame associated with this thing. Even when you catch them on that stupid phone, looking at things that they shouldn't look at, because it's coming, you have to be very careful that there isn't shame of the child. But now comes a really good discussion about the evil in the world, what's happening, and how we can best protect ourselves, why it's better for us not to be exposed to those kinds of things.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Warwick?
Yeah.
But backing up a little, asking your child, it's hard to know, depending on their age, what they're actually asking about.
Yeah.
So you just ask them a few questions. And what do you mean? Where does the baby come from? Or because they might just want to know that the baby was in mum's womb, or yeah. So you just have to ask them a few questions and find out what particular track they're going down. Yeah. Be inquiring yourself.
Just one thing there, Warwick, too, because Alison said something really meaningful about backing up. And if you want to fix something, you've got to go back to the root which started going wrong. And I think it's in your generation where you got this phrase, the birds and the bees, but it's actually the birds and the birds and the bees and the bees. It's no wonder it's going so wrong. So anyway, that's enough of me.
For those who don't understand, that was actually meant to be a joke, everybody. It was a dad joke. Laugh right now. Otto Peters, you're throwing a lot of hard questions at me about having breakfast. You've got a question for Brian or Alan?
I think hi Warwick, hi everyone. I think I tuned in a few minutes late. I was just curious what the vision for Dads for Kids was going forward, because you talked about handing over to the next generation. So but I may have missed that right at the beginning.
Well, we're going forward, aren't we, Paul? We're looking for people who really want to make a difference, and we're hoping to make those relationships, and we're making some of them, aren't we, Paul? I think we're making headway.
Well, the fact is, we need everybody to make a difference, and a difference in one person's life makes a difference to others. So it's something that we need to do together.
So we're working flat out on that, and the reality is that we do have to, whereas we've been able to do a lot, for nothing because no one got paid. The reality is the transition is that we actually have to raise finances so that we can actually pay people to do the stuff that has to be done, and that's the only way forward. So I mean, that's probably the sort of simple message, Otto.
Yeah.
Anyone else got a question? especially wisdom for these, I mean, this guy got up at 6 a.m., must have got up at 5 a.m. this morning in America to be with us. He's coming in from Michigan, USA. And he's been out shooting bears in Alaska, God bless him. And he's come back to be with us. I mean, this guy's, he's written so many books about rites of passage for daughters and sons and mentoring, and his business got so much wisdom there. Anyone want to plumb that wisdom tonight?
Brian, has anyone ever told you look like Tom Selleck?
Yeah, I got this beautiful buddy over there in Australia that seems to have picked up the resemblance. Yeah.
I've got a question for Brian. Similar, I guess, to the question that Joel mentioned from an age perspective. So, Brian, rites of passage for, when a boy starts, becoming a man, or when you start taking that journey, what's some of your advice? When is a good time to start that passage? And, potentially, what are some of the things that you plan to take your son through that?
Yeah, beautiful. I believe that we start them even before they're born, and that may sound cryptic, but it's not. I believe that dad and mom begin talking about what kind of son do we want to raise here. And so they put together in their mind a list of life lessons, character qualities, and experiences that they want for their son. I believe then that they set a course to bless. Remember, with our encouraging words, our appropriate touch, and our prayer. And as soon as that young person can understand the difference between boys and girls, which happens very, very early, we begin to tell him, son, there's a day coming, and it's going to come around the teenage years, 13 on up, when you will no longer be a boy, you will become a man. There'll be a very special time. We're going to bring together some of dad's friends, and we're going to bless you. We're going to pray over you. We're going to affirm your identity as a man. And that day is coming. And my job is to help prepare you. And so is mom's. So we're going to teach you things. And the older you get, the more accountable you'll be for the things that is required to become a man. And so you prepare them, you steer them toward a day when there'll be this transition. And I think 13 is the youngest. But it can happen even a bit later in life. And so we're blessing, we're mentoring, we lead them to the day of passage, we hold this special event, and after that we continue to bless and mentor as long as we have breath. And that's the way that we connect the generations, and that's the way that we help young guys not struggle with, their identity, and not wake up in the morning and wonder if they're actually women, or are they tree bark, or what are they? This seals the identity of a young person. And so we started early, we seal the deal in those teen years, and then we continue to affirm them as they go.
That's fantastic, Brian. I'm just looking for your book here. For those, is it Johan, is it? Johan.
Yes.
Johan, are you familiar with Brian's books, Boys, Passage, Fathers? That he's written books about rites of passage, Johan?
No, actually not.
Yeah, can you just tell give everyone these books the names so people can Google them?
Yeah, go on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. I mean, whatever you guys can reach over there. But Boys Passage, Man's Journey. If you have daughters, Girls Passage, Father's Duty. I just released a new one called Mentoring Moments: Life Lessons for the Next Generation. And this is an announcement we're going to make here. I'm so excited about this. I wrote my first novel. It's an allegory about lions. It's called The Guardian Lion, and it's set in Africa. It's very exciting, and that should be out before too long. So yeah, any of those, they're aimed at the same thing. It's let's be good dads and build our families, be protectors and providers, and live lives of excitement. And Yeah, thank you for asking.
Yeah. Johan, if I can make and for everyone else that might be interested, you know, I mean, I've, you know, been doing this now for almost 20 years and been involved with men for 20 years before that. And I've heard a lot about rites of passage, but Brian would probably be, in my mind, one of the, along with Darren Lewis, who runs Fathering Adventures here in Australia, these two guys are the two leading proponents of rites of passage in the world that's accessible, as in it's not sort of out in the jungle beating a drum around the fire sort of deal. It makes it accessible for any suburban dad to do it. So I'd highly recommend these books, Boys Passage, Father's Duty. Is that right, Brian?
Boys Passage, Man's Journey, and then Girls Passage, Father's Duty.
Father's Duty, yeah. So those two books are just phenomenal. And I wish I had got hold of those earlier, but better late than never. So any other questions as we finish up tonight? Again, thank you for your time tonight, and thank you again for your help, financial help. Michael Darley Bentley from Wagga Wagga.
Yeah. I've just been listening to some of you guys who've written books. Hello, Paul. Question, how long does it take for you to have an idea of the book, and how long does it take for you to finish? I need some help. Some wisdom on book writing, please.
Well, we'll get a paragraph from Brian, a paragraph from Cindy, and a paragraph from Alan, because they've all written books.
Yep, that's what I want to hear.
Yeah, I've got a system that I use that I would love to send to you, and so you could get my contact information from work. I'll literally write it out for you. But it just literally, it starts with the purpose of the book, which is pretty simple. And then I identify what are the most important things that if I were to sit with you and try to tell you what's in my mind and heart, I would have to tell you. And I write those things down. Those become my chapter headings. And then I begin filling in with facts and data and stories and anecdotes and so on. So there's a system one can use. Once the idea comes, I generally will have a book done within just a few months.
He's pretty fast. Cindy. I've done mute, Cindy.
Yes. Same with Brian. There is a system, and I try to write down what I need to say. I use a template that I got from some writer's thing. Sometimes I don't follow it too well, but and then probably The Lost Boys took me maybe a few months, but the bulk of it was done in a month or two. But then it takes all the tweaking after that. And then what I did for Lost Boys as well, because I wrote far more and then I had to keep narrowing it down. But I remember one day I was so frustrated because I was trying to get just a pathway of bringing people on a journey. And so I printed out all the chapters and I sat them all out on the ground, and I just worked and took some out and did all that sort of thing. But yes, what Brian has said, that's what I do.
Thank you, Cindy. Alan Meyer, Dr. Alan Meyer.
It depends what kind of book you're writing. My friend who coached me on the weight loss is also a coach of authors. He calls himself the accidental author because he never thought he would ever write a book, but he only wrote one because he got so deep in debt he had to do something to get out of it. He's now written 8 books. One of his helpful tips to me has simply been write every single day. Sit down as an act of discipline and write every single day. I'm currently rewriting a series called The Search for Life. And I can't work to a rigid plan because a lot of it has to do with insight, and it means I've got to wrestle. Good Man to Valiant Man was the product of a solid year of research and the creation of first of all, a digital a teaching session with a manual. And then I turned that into a book. And that took me nearly a year because a lot of it was involved in research and making sure I was telling people things that are actually true. The same as on this one. I find myself sitting here tonight before I came online, researching a doctrine on regeneration. Am I telling people the truth on this? Do I really understand this area myself? And it depends what kind of book you're writing. If you're writing a life book, write something every single day and just make it up. But if you got stuff in there and it better be true, then you can't write it until you have figured it out. So thanks, Al. That was really confusing. But I can't work to a pattern when I have to discover stuff. But I could work to a pattern if I didn't have to. If I just was writing a life thing, I could do that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Alan, Cindy, and Brian. And look, it's we've got to finish. All good things must come to an end, but we maybe got time for one more question about family or whatever it might be. Anyone got one? Some wisdom? They want
Brian, before you go into that one, the topic of the book that I've written, which is nearly finished, is Fathers Wake Up. And it's nearly been in the Tumut River a few times because I got so fed up with it. It's taken 8 years and I can't give it birth.
I want to say one thing to you.
Yep.
There's a great danger in writing a book that it's never finished.
Yeah.
And you have to stop that. You see, I rewrote Valiant Man 4 times. And there came a moment where I said, if I don't stop writing this thing, no one will ever read it.
Yeah.
And I did that. I just had to, and then I had to print it. Now, what I will do when I get done with other projects is I will rewrite the thing. And now I've got a lot more to say than I ever had. But I could still be writing it today, Michael. And my encouragement to you is you've got to give yourself a deadline. You say, how much longer can I play with this? And the answer is, I'm going to give myself 3 months. I'm going to print this in 3 months. And give yourself a deadline, and regardless of where it's at, you're printing it, and people can like it or lump it, but don't just be endlessly writing a thing. You've got to put a full stop at the end of a sentence, get the thing done and get it out.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thanks so much, Alan. Last question.
I'll jump in, Warwick. And I just want to acknowledge Michael, by the way. He does some amazing work with young people in schools in Wagga Wagga.
Great man.
And it very interesting to hear Alan talk about full stops, because he says things in the longer sentences I've heard. So God bless you, Alan. You're awesome. I've got a question for the ladies, Cindy and Alison. So father of teenage daughters. Don't know if there's any others out there, but the importance of father through these seasons for teenage girls, everything that the world's throwing at them, the peer group, technology, cultural messages. Can you just talk maybe for a minute or two about the importance of father through that season of adolescence in girls? Cindy, are you volunteering to go first?
I was saying Alison first because
sorry.
Yeah, I've just got a daughter who's just come out of teenage years. So so your question, Paul, is in regards to fathers to teenage girls. Yeah, I think, who was it that Brian answered so well? I loved what Brian said about hugging and kissing your daughters and all that sort of thing. That's so important, because they will find it somewhere else. And they'll look for it somewhere else. So I think that's so important. And, just having a man's view, like, so teenage daughters are going to school and they're out, all of the things that they do and all of the little life's little traumas that they go through, all of those sort of things. Having a man to talk to, I think, is so important, who's always on their side, who really loves them. And as I said, who's really principled and helps them to have those conversations. I think that's really important too. So touch and conversation, two big ones.
Yeah, I was going to say, stay close. Girls can be a bit sensitive sometimes and can be easily upset, and dads can be stirrers too, and not always aware or open or don't take seriously those things. So if you can just keep an open heart and stay warm towards your daughters, and yes, lots of physical touch. I think it's great because they get a bit embarrassed too. So it's being sensitive to them but pushing through.
That's great, guys. Look, it's just awesome. Anyone like to express some appreciation to our wonderful guest, to Brian, who's got up at a ridiculous hour. He should have been sleeping in, and Cindy and Alan, who've come on. Cindy all the way from Kempsey, actually, and normally Lismore, and Alan all the way from Melbourne. We do appreciate your help and support tonight. Anyone would like to say anything just to thank? It's important to be thankful for people, because these guys have written and they've lectured and they've taught and they've poured their heart out, written books to encourage people. And it's important to just appreciate them. Anyone want to say something?
Well, I appreciate all these guys saying the things, and they're saying the things you never hear the politicians saying. And they're so important. And fatherlessness is such a big issue. And it's the springboard for so many problems in society. But it's too painful for the traditional leaders, the politicians, to even talk about. But these guys are happy to talk about it.
Cool. Anyone else?
Warwick?
Charles.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that good to see Alan after many years, even though we live in the same city. But I want to say thank you to Alan that I've known for many years, and the way God's used him over the years and the blessing he's been to so many people over the years. Good to see you still going, Alan.
Thank you, Charles.
As ever. God bless you.
Yeah, from Toowoomba in Queensland, with the relentless attacks on the family, the natural family, and fatherhood, and also the crap that goes on bringing women down. A great mate and mentor to me said every bloke's a champion, even you. But thank you for pushing through and having the courage to actually write, to speak, and to encourage all of us in what you've done. It's a small thing to come out with a thought, but to actually go through and put it into action is fantastic. So thank you very much, Warwick, Alison, Brian, Cindy, Alan, and everybody else that's spoken tonight. God bless.
I'd just like to
thank you so
much.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind adding something if that's all right.
Fire away, Stephen. Good on you.
You can hear me. Yeah, mate. I just wanted to put in a plug for Dads4Kids and for yourself. So my situation was I gave you a call, probably would have been, say, maybe I'm just thinking 13 years ago. I was really struggling. My then wife had left me and so on. I was really, really struggling in terms of getting time with the boys and just working it all out. And I remember just ringing, someone recommended you. I rang you up, and you had a chat with me. You prayed with me on the phone, and it was just awesome, mate. Fast forward, I eventually got remarried. I've now got three little ones, another one to be born next week. I've got a beautiful, godly wife. I've got a great relationship with those two older boys, 21 and 18. So I just want to say thank you. And I've really soaked up all the wisdom from your speakers tonight. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Steve, you don't happen to be an AMBO, do you?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's great to hear your story, and thank you so much for that. That's a big encouragement, and we want to be here for people, and be a listening ear. And as you know, it can mean a lot, can't it, Steve?
Oh, absolutely, mate. That meant so much to me at that time. I'll never forget that call. I can remember exactly where I was sitting at the time, and it was just, you just don't know where to turn at times when something like that happens to you. So those words and that prayer and that reassurance you gave was just absolutely priceless, mate.
That's good, buddy. We're here for each other. And someone mentioned this bloke here. Is that right, John?
Yep.
Ian Watson, he's left us now. God bless him, but he's left a heritage of encouraging blokes. He said, what's he say? Every bloke's a champion, even you. So that's my ending tonight. Did you want to say something, James McCall?
Yeah, sure. I got invited. I've heard a lot about this program from my friend Rob Day, and he encouraged me to come along. And I just want to really thank everybody who's involved in this. It's very inspirational, and as a young father of 3 daughters myself, you don't see any of this kind of stuff really. You get it a bit at your church perhaps, but to have a resource that's this focused on making men great leaders of their home and great fathers, it's just really encouraging. And I just want to say God bless you all and thank you so much, because I'll be definitely tapping into this resource moving forward.
Yeah, it's great to hear, James. That's what we want to hear, doesn't it, Brian, Cindy, and Alan, and other team members on our board tonight. Rob, you want to say anything? Rob's also one of our team members on our board. We just want to honour those guys, and Nathaniel, my son, Nathaniel Marsh, is also on it. We appreciate anything you want to say as we finish up tonight, Rob and Nathaniel.
Rob's the man.
You dobbing me in, Nate?
Yeah, mate. Look, he's at the beach and everything. Look at that.
Look, I absolutely love the work that Dads for Kids does, but in my local church, there's 2 programs we run with. It's the Dads for Kids and everything to do with it, and all of Alan's work. And it's amazing how complementary all of that work pulls together for men at different stages in their lives. So thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to the conference and meeting Cindy and just learning more and more. I've got the book and I'm into it, and I'll have it read by the time we have our conference. So really looking forward to it. Thanks so much for tonight. And Brian, I had a great time when you were here a few years ago, mate, and you came and spoke at our church after you had such a busy weekend, and boy, did he touch our little church. He just got out there, spoke from his heart, and really touched our pastor about family and the need to, that church shouldn't be so segmented and broken. You're a beautiful man, and thanks so much for coming on tonight, mate. God bless you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Warwick.
Well, thanks so much, guys, for coming. And of course, it's wonderful mums who've come along tonight too, and other family members. And, I see you, Luke Willisdorf, God bless you. Good to see you. And some of the other guys on the call. And as said, ladies, we're really amping up the whole mother section on our websites. We want to reach out and encourage and support mums as well. So it is really great to have that sort of the female touch here tonight. And, it's just fantastic. You're just awesome. But we better call it quits. But I might get Trevor Sudi, just wanted to say a closing prayer and just bless everyone in their family tonight. Trevor, is that okay?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Warwick. Father, we just thank you, Lord, for tonight. We thank you for the contribution of everybody, Lord. We particularly thank you, Lord, that your heart's for fathers, Lord. Your heart is for families. It's your model. And Lord, there's power in prayer as we pray for our families. We pray for men, Lord, and men to be the leaders of their family and to stand up, Lord, in the way that you've called them to do. Father, we thank you for Alan. We thank you for Brian. We thank you for Cindy. We look forward to the summit. We ask your blessings on the summit, Lord. We just pray, Father, for a good response, and we pray that you continue to empower us and anoint us, Lord, to carry your word and to carry the lessons from fatherhood, Lord, to make a difference. And we thank you, Lord, that we can do that through your strength and power in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. So again, a big thank you. And I know Brian's going to rush off to an appointment he's got to get to. So thank you again, Brian, for getting up so early. Cindy, God bless you, and Alan, and everybody else for your contribution, for your wisdom, and for your input.
Appreciate it.